How to fix your marriage before it's broken by looking at yourself first. We're digging into a conversation that gets a little real as we talk about our marriage, what we've learned from our marriage and how to communicate, what we've learned from our marriage in faith. First, take a step back and look at your spouse for the person that you made all of those amazing vows to in front of God and realize they are not your enemy. And what we've learned to protect us and keep us being married for almost a decade. Stay tuned. Let's refocus.
Hey guys, welcome to Refocus. I'm Essen.
And I'm Anthony.
And here we reaffirm and reestablish God's purpose for relationships, lifestyle, and culture. And we do that by challenging the norms with word, wisdom, and love.
That's a fact. And man, have we done some challenging of ourselves recently enough.
Yeah, how so?
Well, so today we're going to be talking about basically what we wish we knew about ourselves before we got married, or maybe even right when we got married. And even more specific beyond that, how that has, I guess, freed us, empowered us to be more vocal in our marriage too, recently.
Well, I've always been vocal in our marriage, might I add. In the early years, in my 20s, not always in the best way, but it was still a vulnerability there. It's just as you mature, that vulnerability is, you become mature. You're more mature in your approach to things, I would say. But usually when you hear people talking about what they wish they had known in regards to marriage, it's just what I wish I had known about marriage before I got married. But I don't think people realize it is two individuals coming together, and self-awareness is important, and the marriage functions how those two individuals function within the marriage. So I think it's a great question to ask, what I wish I knew about myself before getting married. So I guess we can, I don't know, jump right into, well, Anthony, what do you wish you had known about yourself?
And I think it really it plays into kind of what you said at first when you were like, I've always been vocal. You know what I mean? But I think that's one of the things. It's two things really for me. The first one is not understanding the gift in that your vulnerability allowed you to be vocal. Not understanding that. I think that would have helped us a lot.
What do you mean understanding?
Well, wait, let me get the two out. So me not understanding that, what that was, what that really meant. And then two, for the other piece for myself is really being able to be really trusting you, and not to your own fault, but for my own things, but trusting you for me to be vulnerable enough with my feelings, wants, and everything in between. So to answer your first question, you being able to be so free in that and vocal and everything, like it was parts of me that I just didn't understand how dope that was early in our marriage. And I think that caused me to have some presuppositions and some prejudices about you. You know what I mean? That I think even in term more whenever we would have arguments or whatever that would be, it would change the way or alter the way that I really would see and value what you were saying, and I would just be defensive or rub it off or whatever it may be. So that's one thing that would have helped tremendously before, right? But yeah, I don't want to go too far before. Yeah, but yeah, that's one.
Interesting. And you know.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to watch our podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Absolutely, but not just YouTube. You can catch us on Facebook and Instagram as well at refocused.ae. There you can see all the updates, some reels, and you can also see us individually and what happens in our personal lives.
Absolutely. So, with that said, let's get back to it.
We always make everything about the other person. So it's kind of like difficult to take a mirror and put it on yourself and like, what do I wish I had known about myself? What do I wish I have worked on prior to marriage? Because, one, we talked about people always looking at what I wish I knew about marriage in and of itself prior to being married. But then also like, I'm looking for a woman or a man that's like this. Like we're so focused on the attributes of the other person. Not saying that those things aren't important, but we spend so much time looking for that and not as much time working on ourselves. And so oftentimes you get marriages or units or unified people of marriages that function in disharmony or lots of conflict because two individuals looking at the other person but not looking at themselves. And so what I appreciate about us while we're being married is our ability to, be disciplined on putting the mirror on ourselves and growing. Mm-hmm. I wish I had done that more prior to marriage. So what I wish I had known about essence prior to marriage is more of the things that I enjoyed. So when we got married, you remember I had stopped doing spoken word, and I wish I had done some more discovering of, and which I can, do, these things change throughout the years anyway. Mm-hmm. But I wish I had done some more, just being a little bit more invested in just passions, hobbies. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I always saw that you had was things that you were interested in, whether it be photography or this bucket list of things and ideas that you wish you had done. But because, sometimes people get married and then they get kids and they're like, I lost myself. I don't even know who I am or what I like anymore. And I guess it's a beauty in just rediscovering those things. But I wish at that time, I think I was just so focused on my career. And I was also focused on just being your wife that I'm like, dang, what do I really enjoy, doing at this stage in my life? So I'm learning the beauty of, rediscovering myself in these different stages, that I'm in. So that's one thing. Two, the other thing, well, there's a few things, but I'll just spend time on two. But I think the other thing that I wish I had known about myself, not mastered, but known about myself. We talked about my ability to be vulnerable and talk. I've always been able to do that. So I won't say that's the thing that's been sharpened as I matured. The other thing I wish I had known about myself was I wish I was more in tuned or self-aware of my trauma. Mm-hmm. Because it plays out in different ways that you don't even really imagine in a marriage, whether it's finances, when you realize my trauma around finances or how that makes me feel, like the scarcity I have around that, and mindset of always just kind of saving, never spending or anything like that. I wish I was just, and that's just one aspect of the trauma I felt like I was under, well, I've experienced, but I wish I was more self-aware of my trauma so that it didn't affect certain aspects of our marriage, when we got married. And maybe it did, and maybe it still would have, but I still wish I was more self-aware of those things and how it would, affect us when we got married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something interesting. You said, and I'm curious for this because I want to know where or how better I could have encouraged, or maybe it couldn't have been anything, But you said you were when you was talking about your passions,
Mhm.
you said you may have like shied away from those things. You said you were focused on your career and focused on being a wife. How did those things, I guess, distract you or stop you or slow you down from going in the direction of your passion or figuring out a passion or whatever?
I don't even think it was you. You know what I'm saying? I think even my pursuit of the career
Mhm.
and my pursuit of the career overshadowed the passions because it was still rooted in trauma. I need to finish college, go to school, get a degree, get a good job. Like this is what you get focused on.
Mhm.
And I need to make sure that I get a good job because I need to make enough money because I do not want to, I think it was still kind of rooted in that trauma. Also, as a young girl, I wasn't in a lot of extracurriculars. I did spoken word, but like sports, I never was really pottery. I just wasn't aware of those things.
Mhm.
And I didn't necessarily have a friend group that would explore and do different and new, fun things. I even went to a high school, didn't even have sports. So I didn't take the time to explore those other things. I'm like, you know what? I'm at this point, I gotta move on and do other things. Poetry, I kind of lost my passion, but I'm like, and that's okay for that to end. But it also wasn't replaced with anything else.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I kind of dropped the ball. But it wasn't anything. You've always been like, hey, don't you want to write again? You've always kind of encouraged that type of stuff. But that was just some reflection that I had, to make for myself. And so that's why at points I'd be like, dang, bro, he good at everything.
Mhm.
He good at a lot of stuff. That's because you were so focused on, these passions. Those are things that drove you sometimes, having fun and experiencing new things. We had different upbringings and, you were kind of exposed to a little bit more than I was, sports, extracurriculars, things like that. And so that was naturally something that was just, you were interested in. For me, it wasn't necessarily. So I wish I had kind of known a little bit more about that. Because, people get married sometimes and they like, their whole life is consumed in the person that they're with. And that's unfair to the person they with. Because it's like, bro, what if they want to go do something like, go find you something that you want to enjoy, that you enjoy doing as well. Because that time is important for yourself. And so now I'm so open to experiencing new things and trying new things. And I feel safe enough to do it, And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have known it beforehand.
Yeah.
But it's okay to know it now. I'm okay with exploring that now.
We still young.
We're still young, those things. Yeah, so I know one thing you had said was you were in that vulnerability with me. Was your inability to be kind of as vulnerable, was that all dependent because of my reaction or my vulnerability? Or is that something that you kind of, like prior to us being married and going through our counseling,
Yeah.
is that something that you realize you kind of struggle with, period?
Yeah. So what it really is I knowing now what I know now, it's almost like I was subconsciously jealous of your ability to be vulnerable.
What was that rooted in?
With your feelings. That's what the jealousy comes from, is because I felt like I couldn't be that vulnerable or upfront, or forward with my emotions, and it not be considered a bad thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So because of my jealousy, I looked at your ability to be forward
as a bad thing.
Babe,
my husband didn't like me. Ain't that crazy?
That's dope. Why you stretching stuff like that?
He didn't like me. No.
But no. So that, yeah, and you know what? It's interesting that you say that, because I guess that's that's not the first time that you've said that. And I guess that's what it comes off like.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what it comes off like. Yeah. Regardless of that, if I feel that that's I mean,
Thank you, Arno.
I'm gonna say that that wasn't true, but because of that, because of in those moments, you know what I'm saying? Like arguments aren't
It's your
nearly the
favorite.
majority. Our arguments aren't the majority of folks' relationships, right?
No. Hope not.
So in the times where we would argue, not granted, earlier in our relationship, we did argue way more than we have these last 3-4 years. But the first 3-4 years, we did have pretty frequent arguments.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit more. It was a little bit more prevalent of,
Mm-hmm.
or not prevalent. It was more consistent of me having the feeling of like, man, like, why is she acting like why, like, bro, like that's dumb, like that's whack. There's like all of these different things, right? But me not knowing that, man, that's actually a blessing because I know exactly where she stands. I know exactly what she's feeling. She's low key giving me a cheat code to be able to either address things within myself or address things as they are from her end. Whether I'm tripping, whether she tripping, or whether the situation is just a tripping worth situation, it's instead of me taking that, being able to take that information in and use it as a positive, I would just internalize and judge and all of this when that wasn't helpful for anything. You know what I mean? And that's from my own thoughts and feelings about, we had an episode about it earlier this season, on my own thoughts and feelings about anger and emotions and all of that stuff and not being comfortable with it. But yeah, it was just my jealousy. Like, man, why she get to be so forthright and I can't? That's not fair.
You got more than you are able to do the same thing I'm able to do. You know, it's just that vulnerability thing. And we'll kind of talk about that in another episode. Vulnerability and the power of it and how it's a beauty and a beast in itself. But it's like a double-edged sword for me. It was like a double-edged sword because I'm like, my husband never has to question how I feel about something. I'm going to tell you what I like, what I don't like. And one thing I learned a long time ago is can't nobody read your mind. I think we put all these TikTok videos or all these videos out about, oh my God, what my man. Yeah, my man was able to read my mind. But I'm like, are they really reading your mind? Or is it like a whole lot of failed experiences and then finally he got it, like he just paying attention? Like, I get it. My husband is paying close attention to me as well. But there's some things that people are just upset about in their relationship and they don't know they upset about it because they just ain't open their mouth and said something. How do you expect your partner to change something, to fix something, to know that you don't even like something if you don't communicating with them? Sure, there are times I over communicated. Yeah. But I'm like, hey, he know. He know, and I think it helped. But I do realize too there were times where I was like, yeah, is it that big a deal either? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you didn't like it. Did you need to even talk about it? So mine was kind of like a double-edged sword. It was a good thing for me, but sometimes it can be really bad.
Yeah, it's that thing. It's like we both are learning the same scripture, but on two different sides of the wall. The be angry but sin not. Like, it's okay to be angry, but don't sin. Whereas from what you just said, you need to pull back on the sin part. Right?
There are times I have to.
And on my end, really, I need to pull back on the sin part. We just we emote those things differently, or have in the past. So where my thing was, I would basically just take the being angry. I was still angry because I'm human. It's not like I never got angry.
Right.
But the way I would sin or get revenge, which is the sinning part of anger, right? We think about that scripture. Be angry but sin not. Okay, well, what is the practicality of sinning in anger? It's feeling like you got to get revenge, feeling like you got to strike, feeling like you got to feeling whatever it may be. Those things can be expressed in different ways. So my way of revenge was, if we're talking about like just keeping it with this conversation, it would be judging you on how you how you would emote your feelings.
Yeah.
It would be the judgment on that, right? Oh, she's this. That would be me avenging my anger when I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Don't have to.
Yeah.
God can deal with that, right? I don't have to. I don't have to do that.
Right.
If anything, just like I said before, just sit there, stay, and pray, and figure out, okay, is this something I need to even respond to at all? If there is a response, what does the response need to be? What do I need to learn from this? What can I learn from this? What is she teaching me right now? What is it? You know what I'm saying? Like it's all of those things that I didn't allow the positives to show from.
You know, I think it's all about finding our balances in a lot of things. You know, balances in marriage, or balances with work life. It's about finding a balance. And you know, there were times where after a while, I because I felt bad, no matter how I would bring anything, it could be the calmest way possible that I would discuss something, it would still just lead to a fight. And I got to a point where I'm just like, nope, I don't want to talk. Like I just pulled back completely. And it was interesting because when we were, you know, in marriage counseling, we were talking about this particular situation, and we came to the realization of what you were feeling and what I was feeling. We were and finally able, after getting beat on the head about this for a while, we were both able to realize both of our faults in it. Oftentimes we look at like marriages and the issues that they have, and it's always one person or the other. No, we both contribute certain things to that particular area. But if you keep working it long enough, even though I pull back, I realize, no, you got to jump back in so that we can figure out what exactly works. What exactly is the issue with you? What it is with me? What is this rooted in? So we can pull it up and we can find a balance. And I think that's the beauty in the becoming one.
Yeah.
And the cleaving.
And really the underlying thing too with that, as I've learned, is really trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we say we trust our spouses, right? Which I don't think people are lying about that.
No.
It's learning and understanding really just how deep that trust can and should go.
Yeah.
So we go back to year 2 of our marriage. I trusted you with my life.
Yeah.
Right? But apparently I didn't trust you with my feelings.
Which is wow.
Ain't that crazy?
Wow.
Ain't that crazy? But that's really what it is. But so when you can get to a level, when marriages can get to a level of actually being able to trust their spouses with their feelings and knowing that it's not going to come back on them with boomerangs and knives and swords, then it makes it easier. Not saying that should be the standard for your people to still allow their emotions to be known in vulnerability, but it makes it easier. So, and it's funny, I've been saying this for years too, haven't I? We're so alike. Like we are so alike.
So different.
We are so alike. Like it's almost like every complaint that we've had about each other over the years
is what you see in me or when I see you.
No, it's been the same complaint. Literally everything that I've heard as a complaint from you, I've had the same complaint about you, and vice versa.
Yeah,
whatever complaint. And so it's like we complaining about these things. These are things that we don't, but bro, it's the same thing. Like I feel like we have been like the textbook example for when people say your marriage is a mirror. Like literally, like bro, if it ain't been nothing else with us, we have mirrored each other even when we haven't even realized it.
Yeah, I mean, each time we've had a disagreement and be like, that's how I feel about you. And be like, how you feel that way about me? Because I ain't doing what you doing.
But apparently I am. Apparently.
It could just be kind of mixed up in different ways that we kind of exhort that to each other. But I don't know, bro. I'm not like you. No, but I agree. We are alike, but we're different at the same time. Remember when we got our temperaments done? And boy, she's a thing. She said, how does it work?
She did say that.
How does it work? Because we were both phlegmatic in certain areas, and then we were complete opposite in another area. And it was just like, hey, I worked through this.
I'm gonna put in the show notes a link to an explanation of the temperaments, because I know y'all just heard this $1,000 word that she just said.
Temperament is not
called-
$1,000.
No, phlegmatic is.
Oh, flame.
Which she said phlegmatic, and y'all was probably like, huh? So I'm gonna put the website link explanation so y'all can see where we at right now.
Maybe one day we'll kind of go over what our temperaments are, but
That'll be fun.
But remember when we did that, it was like, bro, that's you. I'm like, bro, that's me.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Why was it so accurate?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a personality thing, but what I really loved was that it broke down the positives and the negatives within that temperament that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And how we can lean on God in the weaker areas of our temperament. And I thought it was so beautiful that we were able to experience that.
Yeah.
But, man, just imagine, I really think for real, I think our argument with each other was the same one all the years together.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's even crazier, your memory might be better than mine, but I really can't put a pinpoint on
What it is.
For real. I really can't. Because it would be different topics, but it would be still the same, like, heart of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is
wild.
Yeah.
But now, bro, we over that hump.
Yeah.
And I think we're now walking and rediscovering the new route that we're on within our awareness of ourselves in that, which I think it's just really cool because you never stop learning and growing individually as well as collectively. Because now I'm making these realizations about myself. But here I am, I'm working those things out with you. It's almost like when you go and you learn a new skill and you're in a class and they're like, okay, I need 2 volunteers to come up. And I need this person to act it out this way and the other person to act out this way. I need somebody to practice on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're practicing these qualities, these traits out on each other.
Yep.
And in a class you get made fun of for doing these things, but we're working it out real life, and it's actually pretty cool to be able to do that, be each other's test dummy.
Yeah.
And then go out into the world and show the world through other relationships, through, friendships and things like that, work relationships, ministry. We're able to work out those strengthened parts of us because we've been able to do the work together.
Yeah.
And, marriage is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not a journey about just 2 individuals becoming better together. You become better together when you also become better individually.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think we need to take that time instead of pointing the finger at our spouses and be like, hey, bro, like, let me work through some of my stuff. And it's going to be ongoing work.
Yep.
Because as you master that one, something else pop up. Like, dang, girl, I need to work through this one.
Yeah. I'm gonna make it practical for anybody who might be listening. So anyone who may be early in their marriage, right? 1 year, 1, 2, 3, 4,
5.
Yeah, up to 5.
Up to 5.
But they're definitely within them first 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so crucial actually, because like we've been saying, I've been seeing a lot of marriages getting divorced right around that time frame. 5 year, 6.
7 is really out there.
I've really been seeing it. So this is for those who are right at that 5-6 year mark. Listen, for those at that 1 year mark, take heed and apply. But making it practical, if that's something that you have been or are dealing with your spouse, take a second to think, okay, what is the root cause? What has this really been going on? If it has been going on, first, take a step back and look at your spouse for the person that you made all of those amazing vows to in front of God, and realize they are not your enemy.
Put your weapons down.
That's the first thing. They're not your enemy. Second, really internalize what it means to trust them with your feelings, and make sure that you can be trustworthy with their feelings. Mm-hmm. Think about the ways that you've responded. Think about the ways that you have attacked. Think about the ways that you have been petty. Think about all those things and really consider it. And I would say third is sit down and have a conversation. And if it makes it easier and more practical, get permission. Hey, I want us to be more vulnerable with each other. Would you be opposed to me sharing with you how I feel? Is it okay to share with you how I feel? You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't gonna bite my head off if I tell you I'm pissed off at you. Are you? Oh, okay. You're not? Okay, cool. But be okay that even if they do, hey, at least you got your piece off. Respectfully.
Respect. I've been saying that. The last little piece. People be saying that nonstop after they stuff now. I be like, bro, what's up with all this respectfully? You don't even add. They don't even go to some place. They be like, respectfully. I'm like,
but for real, like, just on a practical standpoint, like, man, if that can even be something that is starting to be practiced early in a marriage, oh my gosh, by year 5, you masters at handling those types of things, because it's gonna happen. We two different people.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna agree on everything.
And if you don't feel safe, then it's also okay to get, somebody to kind of be the mediator in the room. Having counselors, having a therapist, this is an ongoing thing.
Yep.
This isn't somebody that you just see because you got one issue in your marriage, you want to get over that hump and it's over. Find you somebody that you can talk to individually and collectively about what it is and within your marriage and even within yourself. I encourage, counseling, therapy, because, I've heard people say before, like, nobody know me like I know myself.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what people show you that you don't even see. You got so many blind spots. And you have to be open and ready and committed to the truth about, what you discover about yourself and what other people see you. Ask people around you. Oh, people definitely don't want to do that.
Hey.
What kind of person am I?
Yeah. And tell them to be
you gotta
tell them to be raw. You got to tell them that. You can't even say be real, because sometimes be real people, especially they love you,
they still around you.
Tell them to be raw.
Sometimes they so scared.
Hurt my feelings.
Sometimes people that got so scared of how you react to things that they don't even want to. They don't want to keep it real. They still gonna tiptoe around that, even though you say keep it raw. They're gonna tiptoe around it because of how you act.
Yep, it's real. That's real.
But get you some real ones that really love you and it's gonna tell you about yourself.
You said something that got me thinking. When you said people say that they know them, don't nobody know me better than me, like that type of energy, right? You said blinders. Those blinders are all of the things that we went through the first 16 years of our lives that have prevented us from being able to see who we really are.
Yeah.
It's like every time you got a ding on your morality, or a ding on who you are, a ding on your self-conscious and self-confidence, all of these things, it like just distorts your mirror.
Yeah.
So that mirror, you know yourself when you looking in the mirror, right? That's why you studied your face, because you brush your teeth in the mirror every morning. This figurative mirror that we talking about, where people know themselves so well, it's been distorted. It's like a circus mirror. After all of the times you've been yelled at wrongly, all the times you've been touched inappropriately, after all the times you've been in these fights for no reason, whatever it may be, every single time, that is an instance where your mirror just got distorted and distorted and distorted and distorted. So now you brush your teeth, the version that you see yourself in the mirror is not really you. Not really the version that a counselor would see or your spouse would see. It's not the real version. So you got to have, driving your point even home more, you got to have that outside, that external to straighten your mirror back out, or just to order you a new mirror from down the street and get that mug installed. Yeah. So it can really be in there. It just made me think about that when you said that.
No, that's real. I think as we mature into, ourselves, we understand the importance of, self-care. Self-care is not about getting manis and petties. It is not about getting massages and taking care of your skin. It's also the internal stuff, our mental health, our emotional health, awareness of all of those things. That is also self-care. So we always focus on the external. If we take some time and focus on that internal, it'll make the world of a difference. But it is going to be, to be hard.
Yeah.
And when you open the door for those other people to tell you how they really see you, don't just take what they're telling you and get mad at them. Because don't forget that those are also the people that stood by you when you acted like exactly what it is that they're telling you they see in you. They loved you regardless of it.
Yep.
And so they're going to stick it out with you whether you bad or whether you good. And so find you some trusted folk that you love and adore and ask them, what type of person am I? What type of person have you seen me be? In whatever areas. Open the door for constructive criticism and be ready to grow.
Yeah.
It's some pains in it. It's hard. But don't just be so focused on marriage and what you need to know about it. That is important as well, because you do need to know what the Lord says about marriage. You do need to understand how God designed marriage to be. But you also need to know who God says you are and how you as a believer should be. Whether it be the fruits of the Spirit, anything, you need to know the type of individual that God has called you to be as well. And you also need to know what He says about you.
Yeah.
So don't neglect the other one, just looking for that one thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Good stuff, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I know next episode we're going to talk about some vulnerability, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. And I think that's important because we've been doing a little reading about that and a little research about it. And I want to kind of spend a little bit more time on what you said about, sometimes we're with people and we don't trust them with our emotions. And how can we learn to be more vulnerable with people so that we can truly experience the relationship in its entirety? Because when you limit your vulnerability with that person, then what you really are is cutting off that ability for that relationship, for you to experience all that you can from that relationship.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited for that.
I want to talk about that next, and I think it'll be a really good conversation for us to have. And I think you can be really good at kind of explaining what your point from that, as well as me talking about that from my point of friendships.
Yeah.
So
okay, it's gonna be good. Well, make sure y'all come with us to the next weekend's show episode. Next week's episode of our show. You heard what we're gonna talk about next, so make sure you do not miss it.
Yeah.
And until then, stay focused.
I am.